Okay, I call to order the regular meeting of MWPA Citizens Oversight Committee for May 24th, 2023. And Martina, could you call the roll, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Before we get started with the roll call, I did want to announce to the committee that that Jennifer Howard is not attending in person today. She's joining us remotely due to a just cause under AB 2449, which is Brown Act as modified by AB 2449. Looks like some health and medical reasons have presented a barrier to her in-person attendance at this time.
Lucy's not gonna make it. So.
Okay, and so before we get started with the roll, I just wanted to go ahead and ask Vice Chair Howard, is there anyone in the room with you who is over the age of 18 years?
Oh, no, it's just me in the room. Thank you.
Okay, great. And so just to inform the committee that Member Howard will be able to vote, but we do need to take a roll call vote for any action items or any necessary voting action. Okay, and so starting with the roll call, Kingston Cole.
Here.
Jenny Biggs is absent, but she may be joining us a little bit later. Larry Chu.
Here.
Lucy Dilworth is absent for this meeting. John McCauley.
Present.
Larry Minikis.
Present.
Rebecca Suggs.
Present.
Jennifer Howard.
Here.
And Chair Randolph.
Here.
And if there's any questions about the AB 2449 proviso, I can happy to share. But 2449 allows for just cause, whether it's childcare, medical conditions, or other items that fall within just cause. You can use it up to 2 times or 20% in a year. And so part of that proviso is that you do have to announce if there's anyone over the age of 18 in your room. And so those are just the steps that we walk through.
Great.
And what if someone said, yes, there's someone over the age of 18 in the room?
Well, then we would note that we have someone of the public attending the meeting
okay.
through that.
Right.
Okay.
They'd be allowed to smoke cigarettes.
Kind of like when Meg would be in the room with Stephen Keys during the meetings.
Right.
And I'm happy to send out MWPA's Brown Act guidelines to the members of the committee if anybody would like to get a refresher then.
I think we're good. So agenda adjustments, and I would like to ask for one agenda adjustment, and that is to move item 8A down to after past what is now 8C.
8C or 8D?
I don't have an 8, well, to make it.
The consent agenda is on D. It's his formation.
My recommendation would be after 8D, after the Citizens Oversight Committee retreat agenda.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, which one am
On 8A.
8A. 8A goes down.
Gotcha.
Just moving it to the bottom.
That's
That's
right.
yeah.
I? Gotcha, thank you.
And I miss having Martina here and handing me the official agenda because I don't have an official copy here and I may be getting the numbers wrong.
That's right.
So open time for public.
Well, hold on, we have to do a roll call. Right? Did you
Yeah, we
do
have
it
to.
first and second, so you have to vote.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I interrupted the vote.
Okay.
Martina.
Martina, would you like to have a vote on whether to move the item requested to the end of the agenda?
Certainly. Kingston Cole.
Yes, yeah.
May I ask point of order on a line like this?
Could it be proper where we just raise our hands?
If
Or do
everyone
we-
was, if everyone was present, we could do that, but if we're gonna follow the official rules.
Right,
it
okay,
is on-
fair enough, yeah.
And so this
Sorry,
was,
Martina.
no problem, no problem.
Nice drawing.
Yeah, I know.
We all would like that.
Yeah.
Just to clarify for the purpose of the minutes, we are taking a vote now to agree with the proposed agenda adjustment to move item 8A to after item 8D. Just so we're all clear.
Eight, yeah.
All right, and starting with Kingston Cole,
Yes, twice now.
Larry Chu,
Aye.
Larry Minikis,
Aye.
John McCauley,
Also aye?
Rebecca Suggs,
Yes.
Jennifer Howard,
Yes.
and Chair Randolph.
Yes.
And it looks like the motion carries, Chair.
Okay, open time for public expression. And first of all, before I read these words, do we have a member of the public?
We do not.
Do I need to read the words?
I think we can move on.
Okay.
Other than Dan.
Now we turn to the executive officer's report.
And I will be extremely brief. Very pleased with the board meeting. Excellent presentation, in my opinion, from Ann on the work plan. Move forward with the budget, both approved unanimously without changes. It just showed the amount of effort that Ann had put into everything behind the scenes, bringing all 17 member agencies together in a work plan. Included in that work plan was 2 vegetation management specialists, and both those positions were approved, as was the funding mechanism that the vast majority of the funding will be coming out of projects. And we've adopted a project-based payroll system so that when they enter their timesheet, they'll be able to enter in the project code that they are working on, and then the funds automatically get pulled from that project fund. And then great day at Amberstomp. The weather worked out perfect. Fire Safe Marin is estimating the attendance at 5,000. And
Like double. Yeah.
doubled, right? They were between 2,000 and 3,000, so it's safe to say double. And they definitely increased the footprint. And so it was between the exhibit hall and the main auditorium that they occupied that space. And kind of comparing it to a light day at the fair, the Marin County Fair, I would say the population there was consistent with a light day of the Marin County Fairgrounds. So very pleased. And kind of how I was gauging the amount of people was, it was about the same number of people throughout the day, and I wasn't seeing the same faces. It was people coming in, coming out. So, and I know that the MWPA staff had people, or MWPA tent had people coming up to the tent all day long. A couple of 3 different fire demonstrations, so those were super popular. Marine Master Gardner's had a great presentation. All in all, I think it was a huge success. Ann and I were able to, we went to Palm Springs the next day to speak at a conference called California Fire, EMS, and Disaster Conference. Had quite a CAL FIRE representation and had statewide representation there. And when we mentioned Amberstomp, the size and the number of people we had there, they were just amazed by the community engagement that we have. With that, I'll stop and take any questions.
Mark, do you want to mention the Novato shaded fuel break presentation tonight at 6?
I do, thank you. Right after this, I will be heading to the community center in Hamilton, the Hamilton Community Center, for the Greater Novato Shaded Fuel Break. It's the second public meeting. The first one was about planning and scoping the project. This one is about implementing the project. So we're looking forward to that, and we are setting it up as a hybrid meeting so that it's both in person and hybrid. So if you go to our website, go to the project page, you can find a link for that. If you really need to have more MWPA meetings after
Or
Thank
more,
you, Larry.
They are informative.
or more knowledge about shaded fuel breaks.
Yeah, and I'll say the brass marching band of New Orleans was one of the best things of all.
It was cool.
It
That
was really
was
cool.
cool.
It was so good.
So I may have missed someone, but Rebecca was there and Larry was there.
I saw Lucy.
Oh, I didn't see Lucy.
Yeah, I
missed
saw Lucy briefly, right.
I
I did
missed
too.
Lucy. Okay. Good turnout among, but it really was a fun day.
Yeah, it was.
That, I agree with you, the New
They were
Orleans
really-
marching
those guys were
band
really
was perhaps the spirit of the day.
Yeah, well, it started out with I'll just say with a teen band that was allowed to play on stage. And the first song they opened with was Psycho Killer. And it really struck me. Thank you.
I didn't make it over to any of the bands. Okay, so moving on to the consent calendar.
Rebecca,
One more
Oh,
quick
yes,
thing, just to get it on the public record yet again, was the concerted effort by ATC and OPS to make that plan for this year so much more thoughtful ahead of time, even coming into the discussions, and then how thoughtful the discussions were to make the plan. It looks to me like it's gonna be rock solid. I mean, I don't think there's gonna be a complaint by COC next year. I'm just guessing.
I have a question or two to ask based on something he said.
And I was very open in the public meeting that I personally have some concerns. And I feel that there's some work to do in a couple of the positions, and so we will be working to help clarify the language behind those positions.
Excellent.
I was going to bring that up when I mentioned the board meeting.
Oh, then I'll be quiet.
So the consent calendar, it's my understanding that we need to, well, first of all, does anybody have anything they wish to withdraw in general from the consent calendar? Larry has pointed out that we need to vote on them separately because he wasn't at 2 of the meetings, so he can't attest, but does anybody have any reason why they want to pull anything on the consent calendar for further discussion? Okay, so then we will vote on them, the 3.
Which meetings were you, Craig?
The 2 April ones I was absent.
So my recommendation is that we vote on 6A, 6B, and then vote for 6C.
Okay. Yeah, and unfortunately,
So moved.
I'm not looking at her mind. Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, I wasn't at the March meeting, but I was at the 2 April meeting.
Perfect, then that approach will, that approach will work perfect.
Yes.
worked.
Yep.
Okay, so
So vote on 6A and B. I make a motion that we do so.
Oh, we don't have any public, sorry.
Second.
okay, so Martina, could you call the roll for the vote?
Certainly, and it looks like that was a motion by Kingston and a second. I didn't.
By John.
Second by John. For A and
6A and D.
for 6A and B, certainly. Kingston Cole,
Yes.
Larry Chu,
Abstain.
Larry Minikis,
yes.
John McCauley,
Yes.
Rebecca Suggs,
Yes,
Jennifer Howard,
Yes.
and Chair Randolph.
Yes.
And that's just one abstention, otherwise all yes votes. Motion.
Okay. And now moving to,
Make a motion that we
now
approve
we need, yes,
6C, please.
And I second it.
okay, and yet another roll call?
Certainly. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
And that was another motion by Kingston, seconded by John again.
Mhm.
And that's for 6C, starting with Kingston Cole,
Yes.
Larry Chu,
Aye.
Larry Minikis,
Yes.
John McCauley,
Yes.
Rebecca Suggs,
yes,
Jennifer Howard,
Abstain.
and Pat Randolph, Chair Randolph.
Yes.
And so that was a motion carries with one abstention.
Okay. Moving on to committee reports.
You're up, Pat.
I'm up more than you know.
I see that.
So I'm gonna kind of do this sort of all at one, that really covers the executive committee, the board of directors, and the operations committee, and Jennifer can add to that if she would like. And the general gist of this was a board meeting to approve the work plan for next year. I was slightly taken back by people who were leaving early or not there for what seems to me to be the most important board meeting of the year.
Do you want to name names?
No. But you know, as Rebecca has already alluded to, you know, it feels like it's an excellent work plan. A lot of work has gone into it. I would be curious to know. I have some thoughts, but Mark actually mentioned there that he had some things he was going to keep an eye on. I think from our perspective, it was interesting that it came up in several different contexts of the open space rangers. People are asking for data to show that they actually are spending their time on wildfire prevention work.
Gee, like they read our report.
And that if not, then there should be some cost sharing, or we should only be paying a portion of their salary. So it's very interesting.
Specific to Santa Fe.
No, Novato now has proposed.
And did I not see that San Anselmo had brought it up to a
They
discussion?
had expressed interest, but they have not formed a proposal for it.
You know, there was just so much said, and one of the things that I did to, if for anybody who's interested in, particularly in the board meeting, I took a bunch of screenshots when they were discussing things. So I will pass these around. That it was very interesting to me that this number, that there are 22 new proposals and 101 continuing, repeating from previous year. So I thought that was very good. And the rest of these are just, and the only one for whatever reason, I didn't get West Moran, but I got the JPA Wide, Novato, San Rafael, and Southern. But if anybody's interested in looking at those.
And are those from Anne's presentation?
Yes.
She's now posting them,
We will, if it hasn't already.
and I noted that at least one that I went to look for was. And I asked her about where they would be, and she said same place every time, so,
We'll get it up there.
yeah.
I haven't seen Anne's report for excuse me, Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I haven't seen Anne's report for the board meeting, but I did want to chime in and say what a great report, what a good read her report is for the ops meeting, which is the same content, I assume, and has links to things. Just so well done.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think, this is executive committee, which this will be the last time I'm reporting on executive committee, because that's now Lucy's, but she had to attend Master Gardener graduation, so she couldn't be there. And now I'm gonna let John tell you all about the finance committee meeting, and I'll chime in if he misses anything that I think is
So truth be
important.
told, I kind of forgot about that responsibility until just right before I drove up here, so I kind of jammed through it pretty quickly, but I think I got most of it, and you can fill in if there's anything I missed. The finance committee, I would describe it, obviously, it's a preview to what goes to the board, but I would characterize it as seeing an organization move to maturity. And what I mean by that is that about a 4 million backlog as of the start, and as of the end, they're projecting over only 1 million backlog. So the revenues, the expenditures are catching up with the revenues, right? A lot more things are happening. They're getting up to the steady state, which I thought was a very positive bit of news. There are 2 employees that were added, and the purpose of those 2 employees was to execute all these kinds of things. I was happy from
Expense
my
management people.
Yes.
from my accountant's perspective that the payroll systems are set so that if they're working on a project, they charge a project. If they're working on overhead like next year, then they charge overhead. So I thought that was quite positive. The finance committee members were very well prepared. They had some really good questions. They clearly are into the detail. And Mark did a really good job of running through everything, front to back. I thought it was interesting because the way it was kind of set up with, this is what we spent, this is what we planned for 22-23. This is what we spent for 22-23. This is why we over or underspent, generally underspent, and then how that affects 23-24. So that roll forward element that everyone seems quite interested in was very well articulated, particularly with regards to the core projects. To emphasize one of the concerns that we've had in work plan, a couple people asked about this whole question with regards to local and D space and grants and chipper programs. And the fact that those budget items do not break out within local and D space, how much is spent on those topics, and that became a point of the question. Somebody said, well, didn't understand that it was also in the core, right? So it's in 3 buckets. So that created some dialogue, and that's exactly what we got concerned about. Mark correctly described that the board acknowledges but does not approve those first 2 programs. Of course, we have a recommendation now that they should be more involved. So it was a little bit of a double-edged sword. I didn't personally like describing those as pass-through because we hope in the future that they won't simply be pass-through. Those were the words you used. But on the other hand, I was happy to see that there was curiosity within the finance committee that says, how do all this fit together? So it emphasized that we were on the right path with regards to this recommendation that we had made. So that's what I observed. It was approved. Did I miss anything big?
Insurance minimums was both it was one of the policies that you guys had recommended that we work on. We asked for feedback from finance committee members, got some great feedback from Tom Finn and Dan Schwartz, incorporated that feedback into the insurance minimums policy that was approved before.
There was some discussion about the loss of revenue for buildings converting to government owned.
Right.
I didn't hear the ultimate aha or outcome out of that. Was there one, or they're gonna keep their eye on it?
You just keep an eye on it, but in the giant picture with 20 million of revenue, and the fact that you can get so precise with regards to your estimates because it's square footage, as an accountant, I'm not too excited about it. It's worth keeping a slight eye on, but it's never gonna, in my opinion, move the needle enough. They made mention of both the projects up in
Coordinator.
yeah, but what's the other one called, that area with the ex-military base? Hamilton, yeah. That there's some activity going on there. That's a good question.
Likely less than 1%.
Aha, thank you.
Yeah, and yeah.
I didn't hear that number.
Good to know how big these things are. So anybody else have any, since all my language is going to the public, any discussion on these?
We're still operations, don't we?
I sort of rolled operations into that, but
Okay.
if Jennifer has anything to add.
No, only that I was also surprised at the number of absences.
Yeah.
But it was a short meeting and it was really just for, approving, recommending the work plan to the board.
Yeah, it was the meetings all fit together with it all moving along toward the approval of the work plan.
Just checking the boxes.
Yes.
And the
Process.
And the highlight of everyone was Ann's presentation.
Yes.
How smooth.
Yes. So moving along then to 8B, I believe.
Can I ask
yeah.
a quick question
Yes.
about board meeting?
Yeah. Oh, please.
And I'm not sure who, there was mention made of a UCCE law case that they thought was going to, the comment was about how small litigation is as a line item because everybody is so good, like Ann, is so good about keeping litigation to a minimum because they do such a good job ahead of time to make sure there's not going to be any. And one of the litigation costs was something about a UCCE case. Do you know what that is? And just point me in a direction I can go.
Yeah, and I'll have to find which meeting it was in. But first of all, it was Director McMillan that made the point that the fact that we have not had any legal challenges. And it's UC Regents, or it's a case with the UC Regents. And then we wrote a amicus brief to go along with that case.
Thank you.
Do you know what the case is about?
Yes, it's an environmental impact report that they conducted.
Oh, I
that-
know.
and they were
Yes.
challenged in court, and then
Yes.
UC Regents.
The noise thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the UC Regents
Yes.
has challenged or appealed the ruling.
Yeah.
And so the appeal has been heard, and we're waiting for an answer.
Thank you.
Now that all pops back into my head. Okay, well, moving along to the work plan committee report. And what was attached to the minutes was, I believe, the first half up to where we got the last time updated.
Yeah, let me just spend one
Yeah.
second summarizing
Yeah.
where we are, okay? So if you saw the first part, what we did there was Martina made all the edits we all agreed to, and they were not, nothing's been added or changed except for one minor change. I made the order a little bit different because I talked about how I was gonna move down the core to the end and expand on it a little bit, which I have done, and you'll see it, and of course we can comment on it. When I did that, I had to change the order slightly because it didn't work. So that was the only fundamental, basically, I would call it a change. And then, throw it over here, I'll turn it.
That's everybody's reminder to check their phones.
Yeah. And the other thing that we did was Larry had a request right as we were leaving to look for a couple of words to change. What were they? They were evidence, I think?
Evidence
Oh,
and
Whatever.
investigation, maybe?
Yeah. So we went through and we made those edits. We just searched for the words and we put an alternative word in.
So cosmetic.
Cosmetic, right, exactly. Otherwise, it's the same. So that, if you're okay, we could start with funding staff positions. So that starts on page 4. So the first report doesn't have the edits that Lucy has suggested. So if we go through and use the edits that both of you guys have comments on, we need to move them from here to there to accept them if they're going to be accepted.
would it help if I did a screen share?
Sure.
Yes.
And you have questions?
Yeah. Did we do 8A?
We're going to do that later.
That was the
That's what-
agenda.
That was agenda.
Since
adjustment.
you're bottom.
And I thought we were, and we're moving it.
To the end.
We
B
haven't
becomes
done-
A.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'm now totally confused.
So which version are we working on? Not Lucy's and not Rebecca's, but
Yeah.
approved, okay.
Yeah, so logically, essentially, what is in the first line, approved work edits, It's basically what we've done to date, okay? Now, that did not, those comments from you guys didn't make it beyond in here. So from here, this is just the thing you want to edit. Yeah, so you want to go back to the Lucy comments first, and then the Suggs comments, Rebecca comments, go through each set, and then whatever is agreed to, which I think is probably almost all of it, based on what I've seen, will then get posted to the final document and everything's hunky-dory.
We haven't actually gone through mine up until this point.
We did, I thought, for the ones that were up until that point, but we can, there are only a few of them.
There's only like, yeah.
Yeah, so we can go back and review them all again if you want, but I thought we covered, I'm not sure, but we'll catch them all.
There's just not that many.
Yeah. Okay, so should we start with funding staff positions, because that's where we were?
Which are we looking at now?
So I would use Lucy's.
Lucy's. okay.
Use Lucy's.
Would you like me to screen share Lucy's then?
Well, if you want to make the edits, pull up the one from us, and then you'll post Lucy's edits to ours, or Martina can do it after. It's pretty, I think this is gonna be super straightforward, because I think we're gonna pretty much agree with everything, honestly. So whatever you want to do, man.
I have the one without the markup here that I'm gonna take notes on, but I'll screen share Lucy's.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect, okay. So we are at funding staff positions, and there are a couple of edits in the first paragraph, which I would describe as word edits, and I think they're fine. If there's any.
On page 4.
Yeah. I mean, Jennifer, if you're okay with them, I'm okay with them, if you're okay with them. Pat, you're okay with them? They're just word edits. So I would just pull those in.
And so one of the ones you're counting as a word edit is where she says JPA agreement instead of tax measure.
Where is
Just
that?
below that, yeah.
No, that's
Just
a,
above funding staff
we're only on the
positions
first
on
one.
on 4.
Yeah, I think we already, didn't we already do that
No.
one?
On the, below that, it's funding staff positions.
So the word JPA agreement is above funding staff positions, and that edit has been made.
Not that one.
Okay, so which one are you referring to?
So down below in the first bolded,
Are you talking about the notes?
What page, Rebecca?
Still on 4.
well, I'm on page 4, but
Oh, okay.
depends on which version we're using. So if I'm
They're
on
going
Lucy's
based
version-
on the document that Lucy had. It's after the edits, the document, we're standing at the top of page 4. If you're looking at Google, maybe the bottom of page 3. Member Suggs, is that where you're referring to?
we did make that change, Rebecca. It does say
Okay.
JPA agreement in the document that the link that you have for the document, the whole document without any edits, that does have that change already. So we're starting right below that on page 4.
Right,
You with us? So this is
Yes,
this is the
I'm with
clean,
you.
this is the cleaned up version, or the,
so at
And
the
we have-
bottom of that page,
so we have the word JPA agreement already right there, the bottom of the page. So that edit's been made,
okay,
and now we're starting here under funding staff positions,
right.
okay? So once
So-
we hit, is there something beyond funding staff positions where you have an edit that we missed?
That's what I'm asking to
Yeah.
make sure that it was included. I'm not sure, I can't tell. So let me just go through and, go ahead, keep on, I'll read.
Well, that's okay, we'll wait, let's just get it over with.
Okay, no. So in the bold portion, last paragraph, funding staff positions.
Yes, where it says the board adopted a policy recommended by staff.
No,
I don't know what you're looking at. Do you mind if I walk over?
not at all.
Eddie needs the band of life, right? So,
Where are you?
So funding staff positions.
yes.
Bold.
Oh, you're way down. You're all the
And
way
I thought
down.
you would ask for anything.
You're beyond me. I was just
Okay, go ahead.
here and here.
Go
We
ahead.
haven't gotten down to there.
Gotcha. Go
Okay?
ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we are at funding staff positions.
Right.
Okay, in the first paragraph, there were some small edits. I think we've all agreed we're gonna make those small edits. We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Then we have the indent. There's no changes to the indent.
So now we're on page 5.
Yes, so now we're on page 5 of
Okay.
Lucy. And then on the first full paragraph in the COC recommendation, we have no, I don't think there's any problem with that.
Right, right.
And then let's get down to this bolded section at the end. So I haven't read this for a while.
And that's on the bottom of page 5.
It's in the middle of page 5 of the version 9.
Thank you.
It's before administrative costs, the paragraph before.
It's in order for COC to
Yes.
fulfill,
Right, exactly. Okay. These are.
in order for the COC, by the way.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, sure. Might as well make it English.
That's all right. Just popped into my head.
Yes,
Yeah, so John, you said you changed evidence, the whole document, even though it still shows up here.
We didn't change it in the
That's in-
section which we hadn't edited yet, because we didn't want to get ahead of everybody, but we'll go back and catch the remaining evidences.
Yeah.
Okay. There were a couple we looked at that we thought the word was okay, I forget where, but we'll take one more pass to the word evidence.
So how are we in that? We're still stuck in that paragraph? What about the end?
Yeah, so let's just, I didn't have to digest it, I think it's fine. In order for this, for the COC, reasonable evidence that the board has established clear principles of the limit funding to fall under prevention work and that the staff has investigated compliance with these limits. That's cool. Staff needs to determine that jurisdiction staff is able to fund their own fair choice to be spent, termination whether partnership. Yes, okay, I'm good with all those edits.
So the bold paragraph above administrative costs of 10%, we're good with all. We have.
Yeah.
So everything in this section we've accepted, right?
There looks like just the minor, where staff is capitalized, it looks like there might be a comma right before staff that got stuck in there.
Where are you? Which paragraph?
Yeah.
Same paragraph in bold, third, fourth line, 1, 2, where staff is the last word on that line. It
Oh,
seems like there's a little comma or something stuck in there.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to edit the edit.
And at the end,
Okay,
John?
yeah,
I
Yeah.
think in the paragraph before, at the end of debris removal costs, I recollect that you were going to add per the work plan.
yeah, I apologize. Yes, I did make that one change. That's the one thing I did in the section that I haven't shared ahead of time. There's a question about what's debris removal costs, so we referred it to, thank you, requested in the work plan. So we defined what debris removal costs are. We added the words requested in the work plan.
Different topic.
Mhm.
I noted in what I'm calling the JPA, the pile of spreadsheets that we got. In there, it says that $0 were spent on this item, on the San Rafael Rangers, open Rangers for that year.
For the removal cost?
No, for the funding of the JPA staff, of the
Rangers?
Ranger staff, $0 were spent. And that the whole dollar amount was carryover.
And that's because they were having staffing issues. So they
they
actually.
hadn't hired anybody.
So they tried, but they couldn't.
Yes.
Does that change anything about what we're saying?
I don't think so. It's interesting. I didn't realize that. I don't think so, because if they could have hired, they would have hired, and as
So
soon
it's
as they hired, they will
concessions.
hire. So they're continuing to spend. So I think that's still a relevant comment, but I didn't notice your point. It's a good point. They didn't do it because they changed their mind. They just didn't do it because they hadn't gotten staff.
They created the positions, but didn't staff it, but they funded it. Did they?
Yes and
Did they ask for the money?
yes and no. One of them, part of it was an injury, so the person was not being paid, and the other part was not being on staff. So it was both.
And before I comment about the rest of what the intent of Lucy's changes were here.
Mhm.
Am I correct in saying that we're objecting to this because for the same reason we objected to it the first year?
Yes, because there's no way of, right at the moment, there's no way of knowing how much of that person's time is being spent on wildfire prevention. Particularly you think about in the middle of rains in January, you know, what is that person doing?
And the comment was, that's an example of a broader comment, which goes to the question of oversight of the expenditures. So this is an example of an exposure that you could have, which could be in any of the expenditures that exist in either local or D-space. If a local agency decides to get a little loose with how they spend it, unless you're looking over the shoulder, you won't recognize it, right? So it's both a specific comment relative, it's how do I want to say it? It's an outcome of a broader issue that allowed it to happen.
Yes. And what has me comfortable on this one is we made that argument a year ago and the board came back and answered it.
Yes.
And we aren't saying, board, we disagree with your answer, or board, your answer doesn't follow Measure C. You're saying you have more responsibility or more authority to say, no, heck no, we don't have to do that. Even though Measure C says very clearly, money will be spent solely for fire.
Yeah.
Not just what they quoted in their answer, which is part of it. They give that whole list of things you can spend or not spend. But way back in Article 1, it says you can spend it solely on
Right.
fire.
Right.
Wouldn't we be safer to go back and argue, you didn't follow Measure C when you answered? So
Well, their answer is a bit of a swing and a miss, because the answer is, I read the answer, sounds like it's focused on LRADs. That's how I that's how I looked at the answer. Go here, let's just read it. It is understanding of many of these projects include collateral benefits above and beyond the authority's mission, such as ecological restoration, boost to the flow of traffic, or improved alert and warning capacities. For non-fire hazards, in such cases, the authority should endeavor to enter into partnerships for funding as available and feasible. However, if the collateral benefit is difficult to define and there is significant benefit to the authority's mission, the board of directors can approve full funding. So to me, that was like, and they only focus on core, that was a response to core and the question of whether something's a little bit squishy. It didn't go direct to this issue, which is actually not a core issue. It's a local funding issue, which they just don't do anything on. They just acknowledge. So we're re-emphasizing our concern is the way I would describe it, but we're doing it in a broad way because we're just saying, look, staff needs to do more work, board needs to do more work with all these expenditures, and here's an example of what happens if you don't do that.
it still feels like we're ignoring that they answered and thought they gave a good reason. And we're not saying specifically, no, your reason should be based on Measure C, and here's the reason. It should be solely, not just, yeah, we're following the rules that say we can make it something. It doesn't have to be specifically one of these. Whereas in the beginning of Measure C, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, we wrote this so many different times that
Like 100.
that it's certainly at one point we had in that wording from what they said and said.
It's Lucy's edit. We've accomplished it with Lucy's excellent edit. What it says is, if you read the blue part, that the board has established clear principles that limit funding to wildfire prevention work, and MWPA staff has investigated compliance with these limits. Right, so it seems to me that's like, you know, that's I think that's responsive to what our concern is.
Can I point out one thing real
Yeah.
quick? That may help one of your concerns where you're saying, because I disagree where you say that policy is only on core. The way it's written, and this quote in this work plan document is missing the first sentence of what's in that policy, which is a direct quotation from the JPA, and it is allowable costs projects. Measure C funds may be used for, but not are limited to, the following costs and projects: vegetation management, defensible space, inspection, creation, wildfire ignition prevention and detection, evacuation plans, alerts, grants, and public education, period. It is understood that many of these projects provide collateral benefits. So in the work plan document, it omitted the first sentence. where it says Measure C and pointing towards the overall Measure C funding, so it does apply to local and D-space.
We could add that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to the conversation.
Yeah, we can, sure, we can add, it's just, yeah, we can add that.
And I think we're missing still the part that we're saying the same thing that we did last year and expecting a different result.
I
Is
think
that
our
understood?
I think our comment is more nuanced this time than it was in year one. I didn't bring it with me this time, but we're pretty direct. We're pretty clear. One of our main headlines is local and work plan are not passed through. And I don't think you said that in the first year. It wasn't as direct, use the word, it wasn't, the recommendation wasn't quite as blunt as these are not passed through, you have to do more work as a staff.
In the
and board
first year,
member.
we only had local and festival space. There were no core. The only core was fire safety. So whatever we said, it applied to local and D-space.
I mean, I think we're really clear,
Yeah.
but, you know, I'm also, like, we've done this like 500 times, so if there's any specific you want to add to the words,
Yeah.
what would your add be?
I would add in from Measure C and quote it from Article 1, it says, the revenues raised by this tax are to be used solely to plan, finance, implement, manage, own, and operate a multi-jurisdictional agency to prevent and mitigate wildfire, period. Solely for, I think that's much stronger than what we have been quoting,
Mhm.
they quoted.
Okay, here, so, okay, I'm with you. So we will add to their response, the earlier part of their response, to make it clear their universe. And then at the end, where we have our commentary, where it says in order for COC to fulfill its responsibility, your suggestion is define the responsibility.
I'm suggesting don't add that to their response because
No,
they.
no,
Oh.
I'm putting it down here where we are.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
so it says, we say, in order for the CSC to fulfill its responsibility, you're suggesting define the responsibility. Well, your sentence you just read is a definition of the responsibility.
Yes,
So let's put that in.
and what that means is, board, even your answer was not quite right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we get there. I like that. That's good. So let's just add that, and that you're quoting directly from
Measure C.
Measure C.
Yeah,
Mark, where did you get your text JPA agreement, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, everybody has to remember the JPA agreement just took a lot of the things out of Measure C and tried to clarify that.
Right.
Okay, so that really, you know, what if you use the two statements in isolation and you compare them, you end up with two totally different statements. One that gives you a little flexibility and recognizing that there are ancillary benefits from projects that may not be solely for these types of
Yeah,
things.
put them together
So,
in
yeah,
sequence.
The JPA agreement, I would think, from a policy perspective, supersedes anything in Measure C unless it's brought back and pointed out that they're in
It
contradiction.
refines it. I don't know if it supersedes it. It refines
Yeah.
what you're really talking about. It's the
But
necessary.
That's more
refinement.
recent is what I'm getting at.
that makes
So,
me incredibly nervous. Because the public, having sat at the table outside the market where I was getting signatures to get it on the ballot, I know what they were saying, and they were saying, we've been paying taxes in Marin County about fire this and fire that, and we just bought a new engine, and I don't want, wait a minute, folks, this is solely gonna be used for right here.
I don't think this is
So-
a discussion we need to have because it's a policy discussion. What I'm getting at here though, is that if there is something that we see as in contradiction to the Measure C language, then it should be pointed out so that they can either reconcile it or say that no, Measure C was not, you know, there were a lot of things in Measure C that were not really put in there because of how quickly it was written. I mean, at least four of us sat at that table.
So Larry, getting back to the suggestion that is made here with the adding the Measure C language to define the responsibility, which is then we're saying follow your responsibility. Do you object to that, or is that okay?
I don't know.
I-
I'm just trying to reconcile this discussion here, and this discussion really takes two different statements from two different documents.
So from a practical perspective with regards to what we're trying to recommend that happens, which is that those two categories are not passed through and that staff needs to do more diligence and that the board needs to look at them and approve them. Are we on
Yeah, I
a
think-
pinhead here? Does it matter?
I think we're okay there. I'm just trying to address what Rebecca is bringing up. She's saying on the one hand, taking it literally, this solely for. Whereas the JPA agreement later on went back and provided a little, let's just say, latitude, because there are things that you can do that still provide benefit that contribute to those four.
Well, that's a
core
conclusion
missions.
they've already made, right?
Mhm.
So they've already made that conclusion. So can't we just move on now? I mean, it's a philosophical question you got, but I think they've already addressed it and acknowledged it in their response, which says, yes, LRADs can use other stuff, but we're gonna pay for LRADs, right? And they've approved it, and usually, I don't think we're gonna second guess that, right?
I think I would, but I don't know what our leeway is on this.
Jennifer, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with quoting Measure C language unless I've had a chance to review it myself. And also, I don't know, it seems a little like there needs to be some analysis. I mean, we are a Citizens Oversight Committee formed by the MWPA. I understand, Rebecca, if you were on the front lines getting Measure C passed, but I do question exactly what our purview is as a COC appointed by the board of the MWPA. We're not a COC appointed by the taxpayer. Getting pretty technical, but I wouldn't want to quote the Measure C language, and I feel like we've gone far enough in our language before we start telling the board what to do.
I'm just trying to get through this thing and get it out the door.
I understand.
And I think that I can see either side of it, honestly. I mean, that's why I was so quick to accept it, because it is true, what you said is true. And I think that when you say they have responsibilities, their responsibilities are anchored in something, whether we say it in our document or not. So I'm coin flippy on it. I just want to get on with it. So I think it's good. I'm 50-50 myself personally. I mean, I want to walk out of here tonight with a document. So we have to get on with life. So we could take a vote if you guys want and just see where we are on it.
On
I
that
think we know
one,
how to
adding the
vote
one
or-
sentence.
No, I'm voting with you.
Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable change tonight. So let's go
So
around.
exactly what is the change?
To take the Measure C language and put it in the final paragraph in our recommendation. And what you would be doing is to say, okay, you have your responsibilities according to Measure C are this, and then the second half is in order for COC to fulfill its responsibilities, blah, blah, blah. That's what you're suggesting.
That's in the paragraph immediately above where it says administrative costs of 10%.
Yeah, the bolded part.
Yep,
We're
okay.
just dealing with the conclusion and expanding the conclusion. Instead of just saying for it to fulfill its responsibilities, we're putting a sentence in the beginning defining the responsibilities, and then, why don't you read it one more time, please?
Revenues raised by the tax used solely to apply fine and person to prevent and mitigate wildfire.
Yeah, so that's their response, that's what it's for.
Solely is the big thing there.
Yeah.
Now, to Jennifer's point, it may mean in the future, this COC may wanna go back and ask to get legal involved and take a look at this and think about it, talk about it. Perfectly reasonable, I think, especially if the board's already looked at it, talked about it, thought about it.
I mean, yeah, the board has already concluded, right, with regards to.
Well, they concluded based on that one that they quoted, which is a different.
Yeah,
Right.
they didn't deal with the question of the rangers, they dealt with specifically,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right? So, and we're now going back to the ranger thing a second time. If they come back again and say, no, we're gonna fund the rangers, then you gotta say, eventually, you can say, eventually, we can say, we completely disagree. And the board can say, tough luck, we're still doing it because we're the board.
We're just defining the duty of care.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what we're,
Yeah.
right, there's not enough lawyers in this room, so let me.
Yeah.
Here I am. So
And one speaking
we're
for
defi-
one.
it's the duty of care, which is, we're not telling the board what to do.
Yeah.
We're just saying, here's what the statutory.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so how do we close on this? I'm okay with it.
I'm okay.
Okay,
If
you
you want
two-
to add that in. And I do think it does raise the issue of
Yeah.
specifically Measure C, which is the thing I think should be in here.
So Larry, how do you feel about it? You uncomfortable with her edit?
I think when we're focused on a single word, but there's a difference that was added later on in the future about what you can do. I guess the best example is to use the money being spent on evacuations. That's not wildfire prevention. But yeah,
It's not what now?
it's not wildfire prevention.
It's on that list, isn't it on your list? What's on the Measure C list?
Well, it's in the
It's in
JPA list, but
It's in the measure as well, I think. But it's not.
above it is. The next the paragraph above the one that, the paragraph above the paragraph that has solely does say, well, actually,
Yes.
the paragraph above it also has the language of, so you do in the tax ordinance. It is the purpose and intent of this ordinance to impose a special partial tax for fire protection and prevention services, including but not limited to vegetation management, wildfire detection, evacuation plans and alerts, grants, public education, defensible space and fire resistant structure evaluations, and local specific wildfire prevention efforts.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But
So-
it's
so
including
not
but not
to-
limited to, which
yeah.
gives you the
Yeah.
latitude.
And that's the paragraph above the word solely.
Right, so I would, if you're gonna cite something, you really have to
Yeah.
include both sentences.
I think we are.
Well, your proposal was
Just one.
start with the solely sentence, not the sentence before.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Doesn't
if
matter.
you just use
I'll
that.
provide, as
Yeah.
long as the both
Okay.
are in there, I'm good.
Okay, so, well, I maybe we can find some peace here by getting everybody happy.
Yeah.
So now the proposal is not just to do the solely sentence, it's to also do the sentence before, which you just read.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to, otherwise.
Okay.
it
Oh, yeah.
appears-
Yeah. Just quote it the way it
reads
is.
differently
Yeah,
without
it
it.
reads
Yeah, okay.
differently
And
without
I'm
context.
good
Yeah.
with it, with the proviso that we leave it to the writer to make sure that this
And the lawyer.
actually flows.
Well, that's
Do
true.
you want to
Barry.
put quotes around it? I'm just,
Yeah.
no, I'm saying,
Yeah.
we're quoting directly from the document. So
Yeah,
I
or
don't
you
know
can
whether
say
you can
as the
Measure of C
says.
Yeah.
says, and then quote.
That's
Yeah.
fine,
Then it's just,
that's fine.
Okay,
And they
Okay.
did flow one right after the other, so if we just,
Okay.
as Mark said, put the other one first and then this one.
okay.
it's okay, Lori?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so do we have, we're copacetic on that?
Yes.
Good, those are
Moving
great
along.
ideas. Okay, so now we move on to the administrative cost limit of 10%, right?
Mhm.
I think, we looked at the leaves too, didn't we? Yeah, so if you look at, we made one edit, we got rid of the word believes and it changes to recommends in the bold in the second paragraph. Okay, and then on the third paragraph referring to the JPA agreement, it's okay with me. Okay, so that covers those edits. We're all good?
Can I, I'm sorry, I was making notes from the previous section.
Yeah.
And this is your report, but I want to clarify, staff's interpretation is that is the same as your interpretation about 10%. Staff's implementation has been to hold the agencies accountable across all three. You're in administrative costs.
Mhm.
This first bolded paragraph, first sentence, it says whether it's a staff interpretation that the 10%, I recommend putting staff implementation.
So, you know, I'm sorry. It's hard to keep track of all these
Yeah.
edits because we went into Google Maps, which I hate because it doesn't give you change things. So we had changed, I was not trying to be sneaky here, I missed this. It says, although the language suggests was the question that Lisa said, what do you mean by that? And we actually said, although the language states. So we were proposing to edit to make the word the language states, because that is what the language states, right?
Sure,
Okay,
And then where
and
I'm,
then MWCA staff believes. So are you okay with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
It's this here, we agree with the interpretation, we're implementing that the 10% administration.
The CSC recommends that the board consider whether the staff, board consider whether the staff limitation of interesting. So we're asking the board to approve that.
Was that the case during the year that we're talking about, 20?
Yeah, yes, it is. And we.
That's when you started?
Yeah, and it's the interpretation, we agree with the interpretation, but MWPA staff and the member agency staff has been implementing that 10%.
You've been holding their feet to the fire.
And they've been holding back, quite frankly, they've been doing it themselves.
So what edit do we want here? We said language states it, right?
My recommendation is instead of interpretation in that one paragraph,
Mhm.
is implementation.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And that's not to say that they aren't, as Mark pointed out, that's not to say that they aren't, that the locals aren't already keeping administration to 10%. It's just we can't tell whether they are.
We don't even know whether they are, because some are keeping track of it and others aren't.
Right.
And that's that's the whole risk of having 17 different agencies and why we wanna.
Yeah.
That's why we said way in the beginning, you got all this money going to all these different people, this is really complicated, and we gotta keep an eye on it. So that's why we came up with this recommendation in the first place.
Okay, so we're now on the page.
We are now on to board oversight expenditures chipper funding. We have no changes to that from anybody so far.
We had a capital, you had a capital T and we made it.
Did we fix it?
Oh, maybe not.
Where is it?
Board oversight of expenditures, grant and chipper, the
Sorry,
bold,
which paragraph?
the bold. The
Uh-huh.
COC
Oh.
suggests that the board, I don't know how it was in yours, but it should be in not capital T.
I'm sorry, board oversight of expenditures and grant and chipper program funding is the title. Is there, or the
No.
first paragraph is board and board subcommittees charged with governance?
Yep, second, third, fourth paragraph, which is in bold.
Oh, got it, okay. The CSC requests that the board, what's the issue?
Suggest, yeah.
Is the
Oh,
board capitalized?
yes,
Not
we-
board, but the,
Board is capitalized,
and the,
and there's the word the, lowercase.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, good, good. Yeah. I really apologize for getting, we gotta keep everything,
Let's get it
in the
right.
future, let's keep everything in frickin' Word, so we can just,
I
you know,
agree, I
we,
agree.
you know, it's,
And there's,
Martina was trying to help us when she put it out on the other side, that it creates like nightmares to keep track of stuff, so, okay.
and then the summary on that,
Yeah, so then what we did exactly, what we did was now, what do we do? So then we put a summary in. Let me catch up here.
So we're finished with the conclusion in that last paragraph,
But we're changing it to summary.
summary.
now summary, used to say tax measure.
JPA agreement and the tax measure, let's see, did we did? Yeah, we didn't make that change, thank you. So we have to catch the blue. So now we're down on Lucy's version and look at what her edits were, right? And so we changed the word conclusion to summary, as long as everyone's all right with that. And then you are correct that we need to make an edit, if we agree with it, which I think is fine, with the JPA agreement and the tax measure. And then she asked, it's required oversight, which I think is also fine. So her edits have not been posted to this, and I think they should be.
Okay, so now we have your version. All the added summary, overview, report, is that, you got a whole section at the back.
That's, we haven't got there yet, but yeah. So what,
Just wanna make sure.
yeah, to keep track of where we are is that
I thought
we're accepting Lucy's edits.
Good.
Okay, and they're good. And now I think we're ready to move on to the next section, which is all new to you guys, which is overview of core projects. So that came from the very beginning of the document, and we've now split it down to the end and we've expanded it. And what we wanted to make there clear is that you got more eyeballs on that, right? They have a more significant, you can read what it said, more significant staff review, all expenditures Whereas requested by members agencies are either paid directly to vendors by MWPA or are reimbursed to the member agencies based on supporting invoices from vendors. Payroll costs are based on detailed position descriptions and costs. Expenditures follow check signature controls. So we're making a point, while we really got into DSpace and the other one, because it was, it wasn't getting the same thing. In this case, we said the Corps has not observed any information suggesting that the Corps projects for 21-22 were not aligned with the tax measure or the agreement. So we said we're okie dokie on Corps. Our focus is on the other two categories. That's what that is in what I'm trying to say.
So, so there is no direct conclusion in the overview 2 paragraphs. The conclusion for those 2 paragraphs is conclusion regarding core projects.
Because everything's on door.
Got it.
Right, and in the prior section, on DSpace and local, we said, you haven't done enough, we haven't seen enough, we formed no conclusion. And
Gotcha.
that's, so we're saying we're 60% great, we're 40% do more work. That's it in total. Okay? So then we move on to, what we did on the prior recommendations from the prior year. What we did there is we took the stuff that you guys had
I see what you
and then we moved it over. And we did make a little bit of editing in a couple of cases, but yeah, I would describe them as all
Is
cosmetics.
the conclusion regarding core projects, or is that, no,
It's
prior to your work plan recommendation updates?
That's a new section. Okay, so the first one is the thing about the employees. And what we said was we changed what you wrote. And we say status, this matter remains open. We just already spent like an hour talking about it above. This matter remains open. See discussion above regarding COC concerns about the level of diligence staff performs regarding reimbursing member agencies' local costs. So that's kind of where we move that forward.
Is that okay, Rebecca?
As I recall, you had it as it's closed, if I remember what you
I
said
think we
previously.
We're in, I've got what I think are Lucy's comments.
So she would have no comments here because this is new? I don't think, because we didn't have any update of prior year activities in our prior versions of it. So we started over because we had some concerns about how they were characterized. So we literally pasted over from the document on transparency and then edited. And we three agreed to that. This is the first time you're seeing it. That's kind of where we are.
So they're all recommendations in the 2 category.
Yes,
Right.
all the twos. We get all
All
the
the
twos,
twos.
right.
And I had some comments about those, but we're not there yet. And Lucy's comments about those were,
She had some extensive comments, which was before we got to where we are now. It was kind of like, as we socialized and went through this process, I believe everybody is uniformly in agreement with the sense of what we recommended, right? All those recommendations have been edited, but they're all here, still there, right? We've all now come to a conclusion that yes, you need more diligence. This is not passive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, then you have to take a new set of eyes and look at the conclusions from the prior year work plan update. Right?
okay,
So the first one, again, was you only should pay for efforts in connection with the time employees spend on stuff, right? So that's basically, we're talking about the rangers and everybody else more broadly. So what we said was they drafted language regarding requirements defining funded for MWPA, drafted policy language defining requirements for MWPA funding positions and projects. And we say this matter remains open, see discussion above, because we've already in great length said why we have a concern. So we're keeping that open.
okay.
Next one, purchase of equipment for general emergency use. I believe this was directly what you guys had on your side. I think we just moved it straight over. Isn't that what we did? I think that's right.
Okay.
Looks like it to me.
Yeah, so what you said was great and we moved it across. And we said the status recommendation satisfied. Right? Because you said, MWCF board recommends it is acceptable to fund equipment or projects as long as such expenditures have a demonstrable benefit for wildlife fire prevention and mitigation. The agency included a new definition of allowable cost projects in its budget preparation policy. So we are not arguing with them on that. We're accepting their, correct, we're accepting their policy. 2C, if anyone, stop me if I'm going too fast. 2C, certification of MWPA funds are used for the highest level of service. I believe this went kind of straight across also. Yeah, and yeah, you guys kind of said, all right, look, they goofed it up, but we're not gonna hit you over the head with it if you fix it going forward. And we said, good enough, recommendation satisfied. And then the last one's West Marin funding, and what we did on West Marin funding is what we said.
We promised to stay in our own lane.
And they said the MWPA will establish a list of priority projects located throughout the county. High priority project in West Marin and other zones will receive funding through a pool. See finance subcommittee report on the status of each zone's expenditures to date. So yeah, because that kind of explains the way it fundamentally works is if you're a really big district and you spend 80% of your revenues, those dollars, those 20%, those dollars could be quite large to West Marin because its base is so small, right? So without getting into a whole long conversation, since in your finance section, we had all the numbers, right? We're just saying, here you go, look there.
And what I, just as a side note, what I appreciate about the language you put in here is will, because for the year that you guys are studying, that hadn't happened.
Right, exactly.
It happened the year following.
Right, yeah, because now we're burning down.
It's actually 2 years.
Even more, so I shouldn't use the word burning down. We're working through our, well, that's all right.
The recommendations were.
When I'm in the flood zone, I can't say water under
It
the
just,
bridge.
happened a few years later.
All right. So with that, we have a little more editing to do. I would propose that this comes back to everybody on consent because someone can miss something. As you know, it's easy to miss something. And we will certainly make best efforts to get everything which was discovered back out.
Okay.
So between the notes, I think it would be good to kind of do what we did last time, except don't put it in Google Docs. Just get it in and then send it to us and we'll take one more pass through just to make sure we haven't missed anything.
Both Martina and I have been taking notes.
Right, and it's on tape.
While we went on, it's on tape, we'll look at the tape. So my question is, we went through the Lucy's document, do we need to go through Rebecca's document?
Yes, we do. Sorry, Rebecca. Okay, so where is it? Okay, Rebecca, okay.
So that first one, I think we can leave it okay. That had to do with tax measure.
I think the one that you, on page 3, that thing about actual cost differences and reasons, I think that edit was made, wasn't it?
Could be.
So, it's right before high level service review, there it is.
And that's right before funding.
Yeah, if you look at the version, I've got the latest version. The second paragraph, this information should include explanation of any discrepancies between MWPA monies asked for and monies spent. So the theme of what you requested was edited. It's now 2 paragraphs, not 1, but it was there. It's there.
Okay. Cool.
Exactly. All right, what's the next one?
So at the bottom of page 3.
Yeah.
Don't drop those.
This was the thing about higher level of service, right? And that they have reasoning review. What we have currently is the COC needs confirmation from MWCF that they have reasonably reviewed and concluded that local projects meet the higher level of service requirement based on attestations and the funds spent benchmark. So I think we're getting the suggestion of what you wanted there, right? In order for it to fulfill its responsibilities. I think the gist of what you want is there.
Okay,
I don't want to rush it, so.
no, I think it's okay.
Okay, all right. And what else do we have? And that's it.
Yep.
Okay. So I think we're there. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Are we done?
So, yeah, I mean, we have to do one more pass through the word,
Evidence.
yeah, what's the Larry's word? We missed it one spot.
Yeah, you can figure it out.
Yeah, and we'll find it.
It's investigated as opposed to what? Review.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah, we used reviewed. We got rid of investigated because we're not.
So
Yeah.
I would suggest at this point that we take a vote, that someone make a motion that with the,
Well, I would make a motion that we accept this subject to a return on consent to just look at the final edits one last time. I mean, I know we could just accept it, but boo-boo's easy to make, so,
That sounds fine, yeah.
I'll second that.
you know what I mean? Because it's easy to miss a word inadvertently, you know, after all this.
Right.
You're making the motion?
I'm making a motion that we accept the work plan,
So it would be on the consent, on the
subject
next
to the
consent
edits we
calendar?
discussed today,
Yeah.
and then brought back on consent, just to
Consent.
confirm that the edits were proper.
It's still screaming yell, but not as loud.
Yeah, well, hopefully before the meeting.
Well, yeah, if you see something.
When I see
Yeah.
something.
If you see something on,
That's exactly the point.
right, you'll take it off consent because you found something,
Right,
but if you let us know, let people know, then
I second.
What,
well, as
Oh,
a
I'm
six-
sorry, you want, go ahead.
Oh, we haven't discussed.
well, we can discuss. Go ahead and second, then.
No, he's saying.
Okay, I second.
Yeah, as just a discussion point, if there are minor edits that don't change the statement, then we should just submit them to Mark, and then he can
Yeah.
put markups in the consent version. That
Like,
way it
like
doesn't-
if there's a period that was missing.
Yeah, or a chapel, or, you know,
Sure, that's
whatever.
gonna show.
Typos and
Space.
things.
The polishing
cosmetic
subcommittee
changes.
has suggested we have.
Yeah,
well, that's
Yeah,
true.
the-
They can catch
the
it there, too.
cosmetic committee, you
Yeah,
know,
cosmetic.
that's where you're gonna get it.
yeah.
He
because-
takes it, then we'll run through it and match up with it.
Yeah, because for those, we wouldn't wanna bring it back for another discussion.
Well, so in
Right,
other
so
words,
it's
in
just
other
to
words,
send
if
those
you,
to
yeah.
staff.
So in other words, if you put it out on consent, and then the comments which come back are concluded by Mark to be cosmetic and not worthy of broad discussion, but worthy of change, you can just say that before
So
it comes off, before you vote on pulling it off the consent calendar. And hopefully it doesn't get pulled off consent.
And you know what you're gonna submit, so any suggestions go to Mark, then you have your original, and then we can see any markups that are coming from other committee members.
I do have two questions.
Well, what we're gonna do, sorry, just make sure I got this, because it's so, there's so many versions floating around here, we're gonna take our version, post all of Lucy's and all the
You're the
recommendations
You're the
to it.
master now.
Yeah, and then I'll clean it up, I won't do it in change mode, because it's too confusing, we'll do it clean top to bottom.
Right.
Like it's done, and then hand it out to everybody.
Right.
And then to the extent that anybody spots anything, they can send it in change mode, or just say,
Right.
this paragraph changes thing, that goes to Mark. If the person who caught the change doesn't think it's substantive, then they won't have to pull it from consent as long as they know Mark's gonna fix it. And then if that person thinks it is substantive, they can pull it from consent and we can talk about it.
And is Martina doing the first round of changes and sending to you?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Right, that worked great last time,
As long as it's on a Word document.
as long as it's not a freaking.
Word document.
Don't give it to me on a Google.
I do have,
yes.
Of course.
So we're saying the same thing, John, we're good.
Yeah, okay.
There's one other philosophical issue that came up in last week, and that is we are saying that the COC needs info from staff, or we need review from staff. I want to make sure that we've gone through and either cleared that up or made sure we're saying what we really mean. Because in some cases, I'm not sure it's really that we don't have it from staff, because staff may not have been asked to even do it. Like in that one around Demmerfell's Open Ranger one, did the boards answer mean, Mark, you guys don't even look at that because you don't have to, we're saying we're not gonna even think about it. And therefore we're saying, we didn't get enough info from staff. Well, no wonder, because the board told staff, don't worry about it.
I think it's not board telling staff, don't worry about it. I think it's the concept that sat in the organization fundamentally that these are passed through. And that collectively, and you can correct me, collectively, both the board, which said, okay, these are the 20% goes to you guys, and Mark, here's your 20% check. You know, I think that philosophy is what we're suggesting needs to be changed with an elevation, because 100% of the monies that are collected for these tax revenues, even though they get passed out to the jurisdictions, are still fundamentally the responsibility of the board of the MWPA. Right? So now we're saying, let's elevate everything up, do a little bit more work, and then you fulfill your obligation.
And if I can, this may shed some light on how I interpret that paragraph. Since it says Measure C, it's not just core, it's local MD space. And since it says that if it has multiple, I'm paraphrasing here, but since it says if it has multiple benefits, a cost share should be explored, that does give me the window to go in there and look at it.
Discretion.
Yes.
And just like sorry to interrupt, in one other example where we said, look, you've got the grant funding, and it's happening in all these different locations, right? And we're saying, well, look, that's board. You got to look at all that to make sure it all, fits together. And what if you say it's good, we're not going to second guess that unless it's ridiculous. Because I don't think the COC has a responsibility as long as something stays inside the four corners of what the thing calls for. But if they're not even looking at it, there could be an inadvertent over expenditure or inconsistent expenditures across all these jurisdictions, this is why we're raising this question, because it goes back to the fundamental philosophy. It's not a pass through. You got to make sure that they spend you got to know what they're doing in terms of their spend.
And I would say too, that we're in the direction of right, or collectively thinkingly right, because that kind of thing is happening now in the vetting process at the ATC and ops level. So by the time it gets to finance and exec and board, the board is all going, yeah, that's been really well vetted, thank you. And it's only the one or two things that are still holding, like the park ranger thing or whatever else,
See, I would disagree with that a little bit, because philosophically, if I'm one of those members, and I have to admit, I haven't watched any of those meetings. You guys are way more into this than I am, so I can be easily corrected here. But if I'm Nevada and I decided what I'm doing with my local money, and I'm San Rafael, and it doesn't have any impact on me in San Rafael, because I still get my 20%, whether Nevada was being stupid or not, I'm probably interested and might have some commentary. But when it comes to the core at the 60% level, where you're essentially all battling for that money, you're going to have more eyeballs. So to me, the 20s are where the exposure, as a guy who looks for risk, the 20s are where the exposures are, in my view.
You picked a good example. Everybody was all over Nevada this year.
Yeah, I don't know
Yes,
anybody.
it came up right to the end. What the heck are you spending that on? No. And they had to go back and find funding someplace else.
Okay. Well, I think.
Just saying.
Yeah, I think we've had I think at a fundamental level, just looking at the process, to me, as soon as I got into local, I thought, oh, okay, this is not right from the governance perspective, because I did governance for a living. That's what I did, right? It's like, okay, you should be doing more here. So that's how we got to where we got to. And hopefully, after all these many years, we all agree.
Okay, so I think
We
we've got.
have a motion and a second. We've had discussion.
Yeah. So
We
let
got
us,
no public.
yeah.
I'll double check that we have no public.
Oh, Stephen's right.
We have no public.
So Martina, could you call the roll? And this is essentially saying, yes, go forward with the proposed edits.
With the follow-up and consent.
Yes.
So what I have is we're accepting the current changes to 8B, subject to additional edits made in the future via maybe consent pool.
Cosmetic edits.
Cosmetic edits. Perfect. Okay. Starting with Kingston Coal.
Yes.
Larry Chu,
Aye.
Larry Minnicus,
Yes.
Don McCauley,
Oh, yes.
Rebecca Suggs, Rebecca
Yes.
Suggs. Yes. And then Chair Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, and then so that is a unanimous vote of all who are currently in attendance. Just for you guys to know, Jennifer left about 4:03 from the meeting, so that is why she is not being included in this vote.
We still got a quorum.
And do we have a quorum?
We still have a
We
quorum.
still have a quorum.
And that is one of the provisions of AB 2449. If anybody exercises AB 2449, you have to have a quorum in person. So we couldn't even start it without it.
Right.
Probably for exactly this reason. You don't know when someone's dropped off
Yeah.
or if they're even
good.
missing.
Snag it.
Okay, so. Moving along to the lovely committees that were suggested the last time. The report finalizing was the best name I could come up with for
Right, that's
polishing.
good. Polishing.
And then bylaws and policies and procedures, options pre-discussion. I wrote it that way because part of the point of the retreat is for us all to be involved. So we don't want to just say, here, this is what we recommend, and have a vote on it. And then the retreat planning consultation. So I don't quite know the best process for, I
What are we
don't want,
discussing first?
I think we should go through each one of them, right? So,
okay, so.
report finalizing, and who are the two best writers?
Well, no, it's,
no,
I'm on one for the TAM COC.
And
And it really is, we're just sitting there working out the graphics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And just saying,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
our
so it's one
aesthetic
person
taste.
from each
But
committee.
most of, well, nobody, I mean, we haven't touched the language yet, you know, it's the
Yeah.
step.
Oh, so you still want to go back to the old writing committees? I mean,
No,
this
no,
is
there's,
just cosmetic.
there's gonna be a
Well-
hired writer.
I know, so
So
the
what do we
question
wanna-
is, yeah,
what
so
do
the
we-
question, it's two ways to do it, right? One question would be, in the Larry John Committee, one representative, from the Workforce Committee, one representative, and from the Transparency Committee, one representative. Or you can make it even easier and just say, the two people who are the best writers do it, because either way, I'm fine with it, honestly,
Yeah, well, how do we know? When we have a little writing contest?
Well, you know, I'm volunteering to say I'm not the world's best writer, that's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
I'm a
it
numbers
was
guy.
my understanding that what we would have this for is to be able, because we're gonna have a professional writer and a professional graphic designer, that this is just to be able to say, wait a minute, did I capture that in this? So to me, it's one person from each of the three committees.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Sure.
And
And these people are doing the planning, is that the?
Work with the designer.
it's just really to work with the graphic designer and the writer to,
Yeah, if the writer wants to change a couple of things because they think we didn't write it right.
They dare not do it.
Yeah,
Well, I wanna know, we have 3 committee members not here today. I wonder if we should put this off,
I mean, I don't mind just doing it.
well,
unless,
I think the reality is you want to get this thing out the door. I think by the time it comes back to my suggestion is that we're gonna bring back work plan on consent. We should move forward with this writer thing
yeah, for sure.
right now, right? And then have people work on it because hopefully it won't be anything found during the.
because theoretically, we've got 2 reports already approved. I put them in here as information items, hoping that people would read them. And I probably should have put them as consent calendar, but I put them as information items, hoping that people would read them and say, oh, wait, no, that's not what we agreed to.
Pat, do we need a report finalizing? Couldn't we just do it as a committee, as an entire committee?
Well, we could, except that would be very awkward
Well,
because,
we're so close to the end is my point, it's with these reports.
Well, it's when the graphic designer calls up at 10 o'clock and says, is this an appropriate photograph
Right, that's all it
to
is.
go with this? Or does this,
Just typeset, right?
you know, and I would think they will
Times
put,
New
we
Roman.
will put
So you probably
something
want
in
one or
it.
two people to do
Well, I mean,
That's what I propose, is just get one or two people to do it, but now, or you can get one from each of the three groups. We're only arguing, debating one person. Why don't we just go for one person from each of the three groups and move forward with it as we go? And-
We're using the same person we did last year, right?
Mhm.
So we got her from the TAM CSE, or was it your person?
It ends up being the same person.
Okay.
And I can't recall how we landed on her, but it's the same person.
Okay,
so,
I just saw her last week.
so,
She's good.
And then what happens is it comes before all of us and we vote on acceptance, right? So
okay, what,
we all get the same.
Well,
eventually.
it almost, at least the way we did it last year, we accepted the text and then we gave it to the graphic designer.
Right.
Well, let's not do that. Let's get on with it. My suggestion is you start right now, because I don't anticipate,
Okay,
you've already locked two of the three, and for the third, any edits will be micros, nothing. So why not
Okay.
just,
Right, the writing's.
Well,
It's
I'm with John. If we get it over with, we don't even need this committee because we substantially completed the report, which is on consent. So what a writer's actually trying to do is to create a common voice and
Yeah.
to format it consistently.
Well, there's an aesthetic sense to this.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Like, so that's what that person's doing, but do we need any more intervention from this group? If the
it's
content-
possible,
No, no, no,
somebody say, does this photograph
yeah,
work, or,
Yeah, no.
I know
it's-
last year we had several
you
things
could do
that
it just
came
the
up.
president,
That's fine.
Yeah,
you could do it just the, you know,
Right, why don't we do the president, I'll help you, all right, jeez.
Right, okay.
yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Let's get it going.
There we go.
all right, good. So hopefully the
I'm sure
work
that I
plan can
was
get
gonna
done and
volunteer
just
for that. So-
quickly, and then you guys work on it, and I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
So the
And
other,
Oh, go, I'm sorry, Beth. I didn't,
Do you want to vote on that, or just say with this?
no, just go. It's,
How about we move the slate?
say what, sorry?
Just to go through this
Yeah,
entire
yeah,
agenda
yeah,
item,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
have some names
Right.
for each of the three,
Right.
and then move the slate.
Okay.
Right,
okay,
good point.
That way
um,
we don't have to do the roll call 3
Yeah.
times.
so, so the next one is the, bylaws, policies and procedures, et cetera, pre-discussion. Who's interested?
May I make a suggestion? I was on the bylaws committee last time, and I would say, let's have people that weren't on the bylaws committee last time, just for that, for no other reason except to shift it around.
I was on, and there were two different committees, because there was a bylaws
Yeah.
committee and then there was a policies and procedures committee.
I was on both.
I
Why did I
was,
do that?
How many people were on the committee?
I think
I
three.
was on one, but not on the
Do we
other.
have any things to, I mean, shooting last year was a much bigger.
Yeah,
Thing
it's gonna be
that you-
really minor.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
there's
if
there's
anything,
several things that I think need
Well,
changing.
then you should be on that.
then you should be on that committee.
Okay.
All right.
I will be on that.
You just voted yourself on.
Volunteer.
Exactly. I'm totally burned out at this point, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to do anything until we come back and vote.
Why
I don't want
don't
to do
we
any
wait?
of these.
Let's put Lucy on there.
Yeah, or I was gonna suggest, we'll ask for a second or third at the next meeting when we have the other three.
Yeah, but that's the other thing, so
Pat can be the lead on it.
it's fluid, you know.
Okay,
And I'll
That- that
volunteer
would-
for
we would
retreat,
still
I'll
have
volunteer
time.
for the third one.
okay,
So we're tabling bylaws.
yeah,
Fine.
and the retreat planning,
I'll volunteer, Pat. I'm not sure what's
Who's
involved.
bringing the pizza?
Martina.
Close. Or do we have a date, time and everything else?
okay, yes,
We are landing on July 14th at 12:30.
So
Bastille.
14th is Bastille Day.
It is Bastille Day.
that's a good
That's
day.
important.
Who's
And I was
gonna
gonna go
lose their
outside.
head?
It down.
Also one of my best friend's birthday growing up. So
July 14th to Friday?
I got two retreats.
And what time?
Morning.
Uh,
Oh, the
12:30.
14th, you said.
and the day after my sister's birthday.
The 14th at 12:30 to 5.
Do we have a venue here?
We're gonna go next
Go
door.
next door.
Big room.
Get more space.
Uh-huh.
July
We're talking noon to 5?
or
12:30.
12:30 to 5. Well, I'm happy to work on retreat planning too.
And I would suggest that we make that committee today, because
Yeah,
the end of June meeting to plan the July 14th.
Yeah.
Short.
Happy to help.
okay, Larry.
12 a.m. No, I'm
Um,
not meeting 12 a.m.
Where's it gonna be?
12:30 p.m.
Next door.
Oh, it's next door?
Yeah.
We don't get to go to like resort for the retreat? Well, I'm off the committee.
Well, you obviously didn't find that, follow that TAM, the Old Mill Grade Schools retreat that was paid for by some guy and got all over the front page of the newspaper because.
That it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how much, what is it gonna involve, the retreat planning? Can we have the agenda?
to me, it seems mostly planned.
It could be really simple because staff has made a recommendation for the retreat agenda. It would just be most likely just if you guys like the draft agenda, it would mean putting timeframes and perhaps.
Again, we don't have enough people, or at least a couple that we probably should have on there, the committee. Why don't we table it, once you send out the agenda? Just so we all can look at it.
Well, the problem with tabling this one
Sure.
is by the time we have our June meeting, there's not a lot of time.
You can send an email.
But what is there to do is what I'm saying.
There's not that much, to be honest. You're very lucky.
I mean, Mark, maybe Pat and I, whomever, can come over here for an hour, sit down with you and.
Yeah.
Maybe Zoom, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's one that Lucy might be interested in.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
How about we include Lucy and then that gives her the right
Yeah.
review.
There you go. Perfect.
I just want to make sure that within that agenda is a specific conversation about some of the interactions we've had.
Right.
Or this, for last, because I got some significant things I want to get off my chest, so. I'm just,
And yet you're not volunteering to,
All right.
okay, so we'll just remember to put some John time in there.
John.
And if not Lucy, then I would volunteer to be part of it.
okay.
Okay. So what I have, we'll need a motion for report finalized and someone move it to Pat and Kingston. Bylaws we're tabling. Retreat plan is Pat, Larry, Lucy, and if Lucy opts out, Rebecca.
Yeah, and that's Larry Minikis.
Larry M. So moved?
So moved.
And second,
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, starting with Kingston Cole,
Yes.
Larry Chu,
Aye.
Larry Minikis,
Aye.
John McCauley,
aye.
Rebecca Suggs,
aye.
and Chair Randolph.
Aye.
And that is a unanimous vote of all in attendance.
Okay, the one thing that we have left, and I pushed
Right.
this to the end because I wasn't sure how our time was going to work out, but it is, we've got 20 minutes before 5 o'clock. The question of moving, and I got to get to the right place on the change of day of regular meeting. It has come to my attention that maybe we don't need to change the day because maybe we don't need to meet every month, that maybe we're reaching a maturity point that and the conflict, which by the way, Larry has always had, but it wasn't a conflict when we were,
Right.
until we changed the time. And so Larry has a quarterly meeting that conflicts with this. And I think I attached to the agenda, and I have a couple of copies here because I added on that, maybe pass that around. If we were
I have
to change the time,
the time or the date.
well, I think it needs to be 3 to 5.
Can I make one possible suggestion?
Yeah,
So when you go to the retreat, I assume one of the retreat concepts, which I guess I can't make since I'm not part of the retreat committee, is going to be a conversation about the structure of how we move forward. Right? I assume that's a retreat concept. Like I got some very specific views on that, and I shouldn't share them now because it's not on the agenda. But once you understand, once we collectively decide how we want to move forward, the question as to whether we need to meet monthly or less frequently or at certain times could become much more apparent. So maybe we should wait until we have the retreat discussion and then figure out whether you want to change the frequency of our meetings to be reflective of your conflict. Because you're suggesting, well, maybe you don't have to meet. Well, let's have the conversation and have it all fixed together. Maybe that'll make it more clear how frequently we need to meet.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
And if we choose to stay monthly, I could probably be here by about 4:20. You know, and so if there's something that needs my attention, then you put it towards the end of the agenda.
Yeah.
And John and I are on the same
You know, could
committees
be-
anyway.
Could be as easy as just shifting the meeting an hour later to 4, and then you're only 20 minutes late, half an hour late.
Or it could otherwise be, we don't need to meet every month.
Oh, we think so.
Yeah, I
It's
think
solved
the
that way too.
reality
is-
So why don't we just wait to see
Yeah.
until after we discuss it?
Yeah.
yeah, I think the reality is we're not gonna need to meet every month going forward once we solve some of the issues, I hope, at the retreat. So maybe you're right, let's wait till we've have the retreat and
You know, I'm not settled on that yet, but just, yeah, I think I agree with you.
Yeah.
Just to talk about at the retreat.
um,
I'm not sure we don't have to,
table.
I'm not sure, trying to think what we do every month as we become more mature, but that's leave it.
Yeah. yeah,
Yeah, I'm not proposing that we don't meet. I'm just thinking,
Right.
once we have a good dialogue about how we proceed, it'll become clear. I don't have a strong point of view either way either. I just think that I have some real views about how parts of this could work.
So
That
I
could,
propose we take this off action on
The
this.
ad hoc.
okay. So we have a proposal,
To remove what is now
Yeah.
was A to D. Regular
No,
meeting date change.
No, 8A just becomes a discussion item in the
Yeah, right.
What has it been?
retreat.
Is it an action item or just discussion item?
it was an action
It
item.
shows up as an action item.
Move to continue this to a meeting after the retreat.
Second, yeah.
Okay.
Or either one.
And I'm assuming since you made that that's okay with you, since you're the one who's most affected.
We're moving it. to discussion after the retreat.
That it's not a meeting that, we don't have one of those meetings that you're gonna miss.
Well, it's just any meeting after the retreat, we can schedule it, the next regular meeting after that.
Well,
I'm
hopefully
just
we'll get
giving
it
some
settled.
flexibility.
We're gonna
to-
get settled.
Yeah,
have-
and hopefully the retreat will serve as our July, the meeting, and July is one of the times when he couldn't come to our regular meeting time. So hopefully that all works itself out and we have a couple of months to solve that issue.
Mhm.
So,
okay, so you get a motion in a second, it's time for a roll call?
yes, Martina, roll call.
That's a motion and a second to defer the conversation regarding the meeting date until after the retreat.
Correct. Defer, continue.
Starting with Kingston Cole,
Aye.
Larry Chu,
Aye.
Larry Minnicus,
Aye.
John McCauley,
Aye.
Rebecca Suggs,
Aye.
and Chair Randolph.
Hi.
And that is a unanimous vote of all in attendance, so that carries.
Okay, future agenda items.
Well, we actually have the staff report for,
Oh.
Yeah, now I'm looking at it, now I missed that.
for the, what staff is recommending as the
Oh,
agenda
yes,
for.
I'm sorry.
And it's simple, Brown Act training, review of bylaws, review of policies and procedures, establishment of report writing standards is what I heard as potential agenda items.
Yeah.
We've heard, John mentioned, decorum is a word I could put to that.
Sure, that's a good word. Quorum's fine.
Decorum does fit into both bylaws and policies, procedures, or we can make it individual item.
I think it should be an item.
And that could that's basically a recommendation to the retreat planning consultation to work with staff on.
Okay. So
Can we put some fun stuff in
That was, that's
we'll,
more-
Favor of
the
fun.
pizza will be fun.
Yeah.
There was a line in, remember the Titans? He goes, no fun.
You don't consider Brown Act training fun? Sorry.
Well, the first one said it's hard.
So
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
there?
going
I also don't
to,
consider pizza fun.
I'm going to suggest that there's two things that were information items that were the finance section of the report and the transparency section of the report with the edits made. Perhaps I will put them along with the work plan on the consent calendar so that everyone will feel that they have to read them.
Yeah, because for instance, on the transparency section, the edits we just made with regards to,
You can pull that.
that's all gonna come out,
Yeah.
right? And I guess to be consistent, the finance one should move over to Larry's report.
And we'll take care of that in the process.
Okay.
And then on the finance, did we catch those errors, or no, sorry, that word, the change from the administrative question to be in that it states this, right? We made some edits on our side, on the work plan side, to make it clear that it was not that the actual guidance is only for two parts, not all three parts, right? And then the staff is, doing it, interpreting it all three. So does that, I'm not saying it's very well, but does that mix with what was written in finance? I don't remember.
Yeah, and I didn't make any changes, so because we were still having this discussion.
Yeah, I think you
what
just-
we need to do is to take.
When it all
ours
comes
and
together.
point to it.
Well,
Yeah, just refer to cross. is
I
how we read it.
think that Mark and Martina made those changes.
Okay.
From somebody I got
Mhm.
updated
Martina.
versions. So everybody take a careful look at the consent calendar next time. We'll only have one set of minutes on it, so it will not be as confusing.
Yeah, see, it hasn't been edited, right? What you have here, it is unstated in the JPA agreement, if the 10% cap is applied to total MWPA expenditures or to each individual program area. So I think you should just refer,
Yeah.
just make some edits to say, see further conversation in word plan,
Right,
right? And just
yeah.
bring it across to there.
Which
And
is
then
kind of how we left it the last time. We didn't know
Where it was
what
gonna go, yeah, right, exactly.
And whoever's writing the agenda for the agenda for next time, or the package, could you put a line item that says, read the consent items before the meeting, just as a polite reminder?
Just be diligent.
But you-
Mark,
everybody should be doing their homework before they come to the meetings.
Yeah,
How about we put that in the email rather than on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
to not let the public know.
In our meetings, you could sure tell who didn't read their meeting packets.
Okay, future agenda items. No one?
I think it'll be all driven off whatever we conclude in the retreat, because there'll be continued discussion.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Exactly.
okay. And with that, we will adjourn.
Okay.
And
And something that floated through my mind and everybody got the message that the retreat is July 14th,
So 14, 12:30
Friday
to 5
afternoon,
here.
12:30 to 5 in the room next door.
Mark's buying lunch. And Mark's buying lunch.
It may not be pizza.
Chinese chicken
It's not
salad.
airport sandwiches.
It will not be airport sandwiches. If Chinese chickens, are we adjourned?
Yes, we
Yes,
adjourn.
Is
Let's
the
stop
recording on?
Let's stop the recording.
Yes.
Martina, can you stop recording?
Has she officially adjourned the meeting?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Board